Good evening to one and all presented here. Today's session we're going to discuss about the human skeleton system. Okay, so human skeleton system is a very important system where it's going to give you a shape, structure, and for locomotion, and it's going to be your stand, just like your building. For the building, how the pillar and the beam is going to withstand the whole building, just like that your bone is going to be act as a pillar and beam which is going to withstand the weight. So based upon the weight, it's going to bear the weight. What are things you're going to, if you're going to have a big belly also is going to bear, especially your leg bone. And I think everyone can put you in your mute, ma. See Harishita, grade 1. Yeah, thank you. Right. So today we're going to discuss about this pillar of our body. Okay. Right. The overview of today's session is going to be what is a skeleton system, division of skeleton system, function of skeleton system, then what is bone, structure of bone, classification of bone, then bone modeling, then cartilages, then the skeleton joints. Okay. So first we see what is skeletal system. What is a skeletal system? A human skeletal system is an internal framework. That's why I said, just like your building, it's going to give the framework, the structure, and the weight-bearing pillars, which are going to bear the weight. That's why they are called as the internal framework of the human body. Composed of around 270 bones at the birth, and it decreases around to 206 bones by adulthood. That means while in the infant state, you're going to have around 270 bones, because a lot of bones is going to be merged together. It's going to be split here and there. And what happens as the child grows, what happens, these bones are going to be combined together, and the 270 number of bones is going to be reduced when the person going to reach the puberty, or as soon as the person going to become an adult and adulthood, they are going to be around 206 bones. The bone mass is the skeleton reaches the maximum density around the age of 21. So the bone density, there are a lot of researches going on the bone density. This bone density, the exact bone density will be reaching at the age of 21. Just a minute. Can't able to move that. Right. So next we're going to see about the division of skeleton system. The human skeleton system is divided into two skeletons. One is going to be a axial skeleton, and other one is going to be a appendicular skeleton. So axial skeleton, so you can see the diagram. You can see my cursor over here. So this diagram is going to tell about your axial skeleton. So for why they have been mentioned as axial skeleton, since if you're going to take an earth, we're going to have an axis. Okay, so the axis is nothing but the center of the earth. There will be a stick-like structure where your earth is going to be tilted towards and going to have a north pole and south pole going to be axial. So it's going to be flow from north pole to south pole. We call it as axial. Likewise, in our human body, this is going to be entire skeletal system in which this is going to be act as the axial of the body. So it's going to act as an axial skeleton system, and it's going to be formed by the vertebral column. This is going to be formed by vertebral column, the rib cage, then the skull, and the associative bones. Okay, these are small bones after the rib, after the vertebral column, and then sternum also going to join with this axial skeletal system. Then appendicular skeletal system. So apart from these, the other skeleton systems we called as a appendicular skeleton system, which going to attach to the axial. These appendicular skeletal system going to attach with your axial skeletal system and is formed by the shoulder girdle, pelvic girdle, and the bone of the upper and lower limbs. This is going to be your upper limb and this is going to be your lower limb. So these two combinedly called as, we're going to call it as a skeletal system. So the skeletal system is divided into two skeletal system. One is going to be axial skeletal system and other one is going to be a appendicular skeletal system. Then the function of the skeletal system. What is the main function of the skeletal system? The skeletal system serves 6 major functions. One is going to be a support, and next one is going to be a movement, next going to be a protection, then the fourth one is going to be our production of blood cells, then storage of minerals, then endocrine regulation. So among these, the endocrine regulation, there is a little bit role of your bone or the skeleton system during the time of endocrine regulation, whereas the other 5 is going to be a major function of your skeleton system. Support. The skeleton system provides a framework which supports the body and maintain the shape and structure of the body. Next is going to be your movement, locomotion. So the joint between the bones allow the movement, some allowing a wider range of movement than the other, and movement is powered by the skeletal muscle. So the skeletal system going to support, and the muscle which going to trigger or which going to make the locomotion. Okay, so the next is going to be your protection. The skeleton system is protect our mainly vital internal organs like heart, lungs, brain, your eye. So these important vital organs, even the kidney, spinal cord, so everything has been protected by your skeleton system, and that's a main advantage and main what we called as bulletproof dress like structure, which going to safeguard our vital organ and safeguard the human being. Next is going to be production of blood cells. That's very important. Skeleton system is the site of hematopoiesis. So hematopoiesis is nothing but the formation of your RBC blood cells. How your RBC blood cells is formed? Where it is formed? From the bone marrow, as well as in the cancellous bone, the RBC, WBC, and as well as your platelets also going to be formed from the bone marrow, which is present inside your bone, and the bone is present in the entire skeletal system. Skeleton is the site of hematopoiesis, the development of blood cells that takes place in the bone marrow. Then storage of minerals. The bone matrix can store the calcium. The very important mineral is the calcium, and is involved in the calcium metabolism, and bone marrow which can be stored iron in the ferritin and is involved in the iron metabolism. So two types of minerals has been stored. One is going to be calcium and other one is going to be iron. Calcium which going to get deposited on the surface of the bone, and this calcium is once again will be removed from the bone, and fresh bone covering, or we call it as a remodeling. We will discuss that in forthcoming slides. And next is going to be our iron. Iron is nothing but the ferrum, which is going to be, or in turn is going to be ferritin, which helps in the production of your RBC. That's what the iron which is present in the bone marrow, which helps in the production RBC, hemoglobin, the content which is present in the RBC, which is called as hemoglobin, which is going to have the heme part and the globulin part, which we already discussed in the blood circulation. The iron, heme part is going to be a iron. Next is endocrine regulation. Bone cells releases a hormone called as osteocalcinin, which contributes to the regulation of the blood sugar and fat deposition. So these are the very important function of our skeletal system, which goes to do the function day by day or every day in our lifetime. So next is going to be what is bone. Suddenly I'm getting some what is bone. Okay, A bone, if now we're coming to the, you are seeing the whole skeleton system. Now we're going to discuss about the simpler part of your skeleton system is going to be a bone. So the different types of bones going to combine together or join together to form your entire skeletal system. So a bone is a rigid organ that constitutes a part of the vertebrate skeleton in animals. Bones protects the various organs of the body, produce RBC, red blood cells, white blood cells, and stores the mineral which provide the structure support for the body and enables the mobility. So what are the functions we have seen the skeletal system? Same function is going to be provided for the bone also. So bone is a tissue. Very important thing is a tissue, and we call it it is also called it as a hard tissue, and a type of dense connective tissues also present in the bone. Then bone is going to have a honeycomb like matrices internally, which helps in giving the bone rigidity. So what happens when you're going to take the cross section of the bone, LS, longitudinal section of the bone, you can find out some spongy like structures which is present inside the bone, and the outer covering, going to have thick outer covering on the bone. Okay. Then the largest bone in the body is the femur or the thigh bone, and the smallest bone is going to be a stapes in the middle ear. So the largest bone in our body is going to be a femur, the thigh bone. Okay, then and the smallest bone is going to be stapes, incus, stapes and incubators, which is present inside the ear, which helps in the conduction of sound. Which helps in the conduction or the transmission of the vibration by your eardrum in the middle ear. Then the structure of bone. So bone is not uniformly solid, but consists of a flexible matrix about 30% in the bone and bounded minerals about 70%. That's what I said. When you're going to take the LS, longitudinal section of your bone, you can find out the flexible matrix which is present inside is going to be 30%, and the minerals, which is very important, which forms the bone, we called it as it's going to be around 70%. And the intrinsically woven and endlessly remodeled by a group of specialized bone cells. That's very important. There are two bone cells which is present in the bone, which going to play a major role in the remodeling of the bone, or in the ossification or osteoporosis in the formation of the bone. It's also these two cells going to play a major role. The bone is the actively constructed and remolded throughout the life by a special bone cell known as osteoblast and osteoclast. So these are the two important bone cell, which going to remodel your bone throughout your life. So okay, so as age progresses, this remodeling also completely sets down. Okay, that's what. If a person got any fracture in any bone, what happened? That again the bone will be growing. Exactly, the bone won't be growing. The remodeling, the cells, the osteoblast and the osteoclast, going to play a major role in the development of the minerals on the surface of the fracture or the crack, and it will close that crack, and it will. That's what the generation of the bone also can be takes place. Any single bone, the tissue is woven into two main patterns known as cortical bone and cancellous bone. So cortical bone is nothing but in a single bone itself, there are going to be two different bones. That's what when I take the LS of the, I will show the diagram. When you take the LS of the bone, you can find out the matrix is spongy like structure. That bone, we called it as a cancellous bone, and the outer thick covering will be there out in the border or the surface of the bone. Then it is called as the cortical bone. Okay, now we're going to see about the osteoblast, the cell of the bone. What the exact osteoblast is going to do. The osteoblast are the cell with a single nucleus that synthesize the bone. It's going to synthesize the bone. The process of bone formation, osteoblast function in a group of connected cells. It's going to have a group of connected cells, and it's going to be a single nucleated cells which going to synthesize the bone with the help of that mineral. It's going to synthesize this bone on the surface of the bone. A group of organized osteoblasts together with the bone made by a unit of cells and usually called as osteon. The osteoblasts are the specialized, terminally differentiated product of mesenchyma stem cells. So the bone is developed by the mesenchyma. There is a lot of stem cells in the embryo. So usually the bone is developed from the mesenchyma. There are three different cells which is present, where the mesenchyma stem cells is going to be responsible for the development or the ossification of the bone. Then synthesize what the osteoblast is going to synthesize a dense cross-linked collagen and specialized protein in much smaller quantity. So the organized group of the connected cells, the osteoblast, produces a hydroxylase peptide. So these are the things which going to the cross-linked collagen, which going to secreted by these osteoblasts, going to cover the surface of the bone and which going to form a layer on the surface of the bone. Okay, you can see the video also, the animated thing. Is the bone minerals that is deposited is a highly regulated manner into an organic matrix, forming a strong and dense mineralized tissue. I will let you see. You can in the diagram you can able to see this is going to be our new bone, which is going to synthesize by this going to be our osteoblast cells, which is going to have a single nucleus. You can able to find out the nucleus, and these are the new bone which is going to form on the surface of the bone. And this is going to be a cancellous bone. This is going to be a cancel. You can see the spongy matrix, like spongy, like some spaces will be there. Okay, this is going to be your cancellous bone, and the side view it let you know. This is going to be your cortical bone, which is going to the outer surface, which is a hard thing which is going to be formed on the surface, on the outer surface of the bone. The osteoblasts buried in the matrix are called as osteocytes. What happened? These osteoblasts going to be get buried, or it going to be get apostasis. So what happened? It will get buried in this matrix and form another cell which you called as the osteocytes, which going to be the star-like shaped. We'll see the next diagram. The osteocytes remains alive and are connected by the cell process to a surface layer of osteoblast. Osteocytes have a major function in the skeleton system. Okay, so the main thing, osteoblast going to form the layer, form the bone surface, bone layer, okay, with the help of the minerals, and it in other words we can tell it as it going to synthesize the bone. Okay, next we're going to see about the osteocytes. Okay, osteocyte, a star-shaped type of bone cell, is the most commonly found cell in the mature bone tissue and can live as long as the organism itself. So what happened is a star shape. You can see the diagram, you can see the animation video. I'll start from the beginning. Right, right. This is going to be our osteoblast, which going to be get buried in the tissue itself and going to form a star-shaped cells called as osteocytes. You can able to see that. See these many star-shaped cells which going called as osteocytes. This is going to be osteoblast, which going to get buried, go to form a osteocytes. These osteocytes cells going to be alive inside the bone itself till that organism lives. Okay, so at any time it can be converted into osteoblasts, and again it can synthesize the bone, the minerals or the bone layer. The matured bone, osteocytes, and the process resides inside the space called as lacuna and the canuliculi. So lacuna in sense cavity which is present inside the interior of the bone. We can able to see in the femur bone, which has that canal has been filled with your bone marrows. Okay. So destroy bone through a rapid transient mechanism called as osteocytic osteolysis. So what happens in some cases your bone tissue has been dead. So this tissue has to be transiented, and this has to be what to say, it has to be engulfed, or it has to be digested and it has to be excreted out. So this has been done by the osteocytic cell, which under the process is called as the mechanism, we call it as a osteocytic osteolysis. Osteolysis in sense removing of the dead cells is called, lysis is a death. Okay, osteolysis. Hydroxypeptide, calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate is deposited around the cell. Mature osteocytes contains a single nucleus that is located towards the vascular side as one or two nuclei and a membrane. So these cells might have one or two nucleoli, and it's also a single nucleus cell, and it might have one or two nucleoli inside the membrane. Next cell we're going to call, actually there are two types of cell in the bone. One is osteoblast and other one is osteoclast. This osteoblast only going to convert as a osteocyte. So there is no different, don't think that the bone going to have three different bone cells. We have only two bone cells. In that, the osteoblast only going to convert as a osteocyte. Okay. So now the next cell we're going to discuss about the osteoclast. Okay, a type of bone cell that breaks down your bone tissue. This is what day-to-day life is regularly happening in our body. What happened? The outer layer, the bone tissue, the present on the outer layer of the bone, it will be removed by this osteoclast, and the osteoblast going to lay down the new bone layer with the minerals or synthesize the bone layer on the top. Okay, so you can see the animated video, you can see this is going to be a osteoclast cell which going to remove the surface of your bone. Okay, see how it is engulfing. Okay, and it disintegrates with the help of the enzymes and the content which is present inside, which is going to secreted by the cell, and it removing the surface, and you can find out some dust particles which is coming out from the cell. You can able to find out if you see carefully, you can find out some dust particles, nothing but the small bone particle, which is going to be a calcium phosphate and some minerals which going to be removed from the surface of the bone, and these minerals going to be get dissolved in the absorbed by the blood, and which will be carrying by the blood. And now what happened, it has been removing the outer covering of the bone layer, and you can find out the cancellous bone. We can find out the matrix like structure, cancellous bone. Now what happened, this osteoblast, the osteoclast is removing, and osteoblast is going to lay, just like I always used to compare everything with the real-time life. It's just like laying a roads. Okay, the bulldozer will be removing the surface of the tar road. What happens, and after removing that, a new tar road is going to be laid by the road roller. The bulldozer is going to be your osteoclast, and the road roller is going, which is used to lay a new road, is going to be osteoblast. Just like the same process, your osteoclast is going to be removing the worn out or old out the calcium deposits or the cortical bone, and the osteoblast going to lay a new bone layer on the top to make the bone rigid and to have a good strength and to maintain the bone density also. That's the main process. Okay, we'll come to the points. Function is the critical in the maintaining, repairing and remodeling of bone of the vertebral skeletal system. Osteoclast disassembles and digests the composite of hydrated protein, okay, and the minerals at the molecular level by secreting an acid and collagenase. So collagenase, if the word ends with a nase in sense, it will be enzyme. Okay, so if it is ended with AS means it's an enzyme which by secreting this added acid and the collagenase, which going to remove the topmost layer or the hydrated protein layer or mineral layer from the bone. The osteoclast is a large multinucleated. So this is a difference between an osteoblast and osteoclast. The osteoclast is going to be a multinucleated cell, and a human osteoclast on the bone typically have 5 nucleus. So sometimes it might be vary to 10 or more than that, but minimum in human it going to have 5 nucleus inside the cell. So osteoclasts, including the cytokine, are used to convert the macrophage to osteoclast. So what happened? It's going to convert the macrophage. Macrophage in sense it's going to engulf the surface and is going to convert into osteoclast with the help of a osteoclast cytokine. Osteoclasts are regulated by a several hormone, including the parathyroid hormone from the parathyroid gland and the calcitonin from the thyroid gland. So parathyroid gland as well as the thyroid gland, which is going to secrete calcitonin, which maintains the calcium level, blood level, calcium level in the blood, which helps in the controlling or regulating the osteoclasts. Right. So till now we have discussed about the bone cells. Now we're going to discuss about the different types of bone, which we called as a cortical bone and the cancellous bone. So you can see the diagram. So you can see some dotted air gap, a spongy, a matrix-like structure inside the bone. We called it as a cancellous bone. This is going to be a cancellous bone or trabecular. Okay, we also called as a trabecular or spongy bone or cancellous bone. So the layer, you can find out some thick layer around the surface of the bone. Okay, this we call it as a cortical bone or the hard bone. Okay, right. And this is going to be your cavity, mandibular cavity, medullary cavity, where your medullary cavity is going to be filled by a bone marrow, and the covering of the bone, the outer layer covering of the bone is going to be a peritoneum bone membrane, and this is going to be our articular cartilage. Okay, the blue colored cartilage which is present at the top of the bone. In each and every joint you can find out this articular cartilage, which helps in the movements of your bone. Okay, let me discuss about later. Right, now cortical bone. The harder outer layer of bone is composed of a cortical bone, which is also called as a compact bone, as it is much denser than the cancellous bone. It forms a hard exterior outer layer of the bone. Outer layer may be called as a cortex of the bone. The cortical bone gives the bone its smooth, white, and solid appearance, and the account of 80% of total bone mass of an adult human skeleton. The main function is to support the whole body, to protect the organ, to provide the lever for movement, and to store and release the chemical element, mainly the calcium. And it consists of a multiple microspore column called it as ostein. Okay, so a lot of micropores where your blood vessels might be enter into that bone. Okay, so each column is multi-layered of osteoblast and osteocytes around a central canal called as Harvasian canal. Okay, it's going to have a central canal which is called as a Harvasian canal, and the cortex of your bone is mainly made up of osteoblast and osteocytes, not osteoclast. Okay, osteoblast and the osteocytes. The cortical bone is covered by a peristonium on its outer surface and an endostonium on the inner surface. So peristonium is nothing but the outer layer, which I shown here. Peristonium is going to be an outer layer of the bone, and endostonium is going to be the inner layer of the bone, which this endostonium is going to be differentiate into your cortical bone as well as your cancellous bone. So these two bones will be differentiated with the help of the layer called as endostonium bone. Okay, right. The cortical bone is covered by a peritoneum in the outer layer surface and an endosteum on the inner surface. The endosteum is the boundary, that's what I said, is the boundary between your cortical bone and the cancellous bone. Okay. Right, we move to the next slide. Next is going to be a cancellous bone. So the cancellous bone is nothing but, so you can able to see the matrix. It's also called as trabecular bone also. The cancellous bone is also called as trabecular or spongy bone. The internal tissue of the skeleton bone and is an open cell porous network. A lot of pores will be there. A network like structure with lot of pores. Okay. The cancellous bone has the higher surface area to volume ratio than the cortical bone, and it is less dense. The cancellous bone is typically found at the end of the long bone near the joints and in the interior of the vertebrae. Okay. The cancellous bones is highly vascular and often contains red bone marrow where the hematopoiesis is going to be occur. So that means the lot of pores, these pores are going to be filled with a lot of blood vessels. Highly vascular in sense is going to be supplied by the blood vessels, and it is also filled with red bone marrow, which going to helps in the production of RBCs, and these RBCs will be automatically carried by the blood vessels which has been vasculated inside the spongy bone. The primary anatomical and functional unit of the cancellous bone is going to be trabeculae. Okay, the thin formation of the osteoblast covers in the endosteum create an irregular network of space known as the trabeculae. The space that the pores or the space we call this as a trabeculae. The space are bone marrows and the hematopoietic stem cells that gives rise to the platelets, red blood cells, and the white blood cells. So the cancellous bone will plays a major role in the production of blood vessel, which going to have enormous amount of pores. This pores going to be pores is going to be, we called it as a trabeculae. Okay, and it has been that these pores has been highly vascularized. So, and the production of RBC, WBC is also enters into the blood vessel, and it also nourishes the cancellous bone. Okay. Next, we're going to see the classification of bone. Yeah, our bone is going to classify it into 5 different bones. The first one is going to be a long bone. Next one is going to be a short bone. And third one is going to be a flat bone. Fourth one is going to be an irregular bone. And fifth one is going to be a sesamoid bone. Okay. So long bone, obviously we know the longest bone in our body is going to be our femur bone. Not only femur, tibia, then radii, that means your thigh bone, your leg bone. So these are the bones, your arm, upper arm and the lower arm going to be your long bone. Okay, so the long bone are those that are longer than they are wider. So they are not that much wider, they are longer, they are grown in lengthwise, not in the breadthwise. So you can able to see image is going to be your femur bone, which here is going to be attached to your pelvic girdle. Okay, it's going to be grow in the lengthwise, not in the breadthwise. Especially the femur and the tibia are the subjected to the most of the load during the daily activity, and they are crucially for the skeletal mobility. So the femur bone and the tibia, femur bone is the thigh bone, and the tibia is the just below your knee, okay, to the foot. It's called as a tibia bone. These two bones going to play a major role in the locomotion, weight bearing, and all the regular activity. If these bones got affected, the total activity of a human being will completely stop, and he will be stay in a particular corner of the place. Okay, they grow primarily by elongation of the diaphysis with an epiphysis at the each end of the growing bone, and the ends of epiphysis are covered with a hyaline cartilage. Okay, so what is that weird diaphysis and epiphysis in sense? Diaphysis is going to be your this portion we call it as a diaphysis, and this is going to be your epiphysis. Okay, So what happened? The diaphysis, the elongation of the diaphysis, this is going to be get elongated with an epiphysis at the end of the growing bone. Epiphysis is the end of the growing bone. The end of the epiphysis is going to always, actually always we having a skeleton system. This skeletal system is always supported with the help of the ligaments, cartilage, then muscle. So these three very important layer which going to support the joint, which going to keep the strengthen in the joint. For example, in your knee joint, okay, you can able to touch, you can able to see the knee bone, you can easily touch the knee bone, because there is no that much of muscles which is present in the knee bone. And then how come this knee bone has been get joined? How come this femur and the tibia is going to get joined in that joint? Just like tying with a thread, a god has been tied with the ligaments and the cartilage, which won't allow to dislocate your bone. In case if you're going to face an accident, or you're going to fall from a steps or from a higher height, or suddenly while we walking, while we slipped and we fall down and we got any hurt, immediately there is a chances of ligament tear. Most probably we can come across this word, ligament tear has been happened. That person should be at rest for 6 months and he should not walk. He has to use the walking stick, because I'll tell you the ligaments. Why? Because the ligaments won't be regenerated as like your bone. That's a very important. Ligaments as well as your cartilage will not be regenerated just like your bone. Even the fracture also can be cured within 6 months. And nowadays the modern technology has biomedical field as some biomaterials like steel, screws, plates has been now can be inserted, and the next day of the fracture itself the person can be able to move nowadays. No need of taking rest, or no need of having that plaster of Paris around your fracture areas and all. Okay, right, now we'll come to the topic where I left the point. Right, covers the with an hyaline cartilage. There are different types of cartilages. So here it has been the epiphysis is covered with an hyaline cartilage. So the longitudinal growth of the long bone is a result of the endochronal ossification and at the epiphyseal plate. The another important thing is this is going to be our diaphysis. This is going to be a diaphysis and is going to be epiphysis. You can see a white line. Okay, can you able to see my cursor? White line in the topmost part as well as in the lowermost part, which we called it as a epiphyseal line or the epiphyseal plate or the growth plate. So this can be able to see in children's. This line, this epiphyseal plate can be visible in children as they reach the age of 20 or after attaining the puberty. This line will be disappear. Why? Because this is called as the growth plate. What happened? The child, as soon as the infant, from the infant till it gets adolescent, the child has been growing. How it's growing is growing in sense to the height in sense by lengthening of your tibia as well as your femur. Okay, that's going to maintain the height. That's going to decide the height of the person. Not only it won't grow continuously, based upon the genetic factor, genetic information, and the growth hormone which has been secreted by the pituitary gland. Everything plays a major role in the elongation of growing of your bones. And this epiphyseal plate will completed in the adult stage. In case if me or you, now we're going to take your x-ray or going to find out in some other imaging technology, if you can't able to see this growth plate or the epiphyseal plate in your femur. Not only in femur, it is not present in femur, it is present in femur, tibia, all long bones. You can able to find out this epiphyseal plate, and other bones also you can able to find out, which will grows up as the age progresses, as the growth progresses by the growth hormones secreted by the endocrine glands. This epiphyseal plate will be plays a major role. Next, we're going to see the short bone. So this is going to be designated as those bones that are wide as they are long. So primary function is to provide support and stability with little to no movements. So these short bones, there won't be any movement at all, but it gives the support for the movement. It will support, it will place the way to make the movement, but it does not move. In case if moves means that's all, some fracture has been happened. Example for those bone includes the tarsal in the foot and the carpals in the hand. So in the image you can able to find out, this is going to be our hand, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So these are called as the carpals or carpus or carpals bone, which is present in the wrist region of your hand. Okay, so in the wrist region, even though you can now also you can see there won't be movement in this region. You can't find any movement in this region. You can move here, you can move here, you can move, you can find out the joints, so you can easily move, and here also we can move, but this region will not be moved because it is made up of short bone. This is going to support the movement. This is going to support between your palm as well as your wrist region. Likewise, in leg, you can find out the color, the yellow color, the heel, and that purple, red, green, okay, and the purple color. These bones are called as the short bone, which we called it as a tarsals bone, which is present in the foot. And even though we can able to see that these bones won't be involved in the locomotion or in the movement, only the foot, which is emerging out from there, just like your hand, which is emerging from this, going to be have the movement, and the fingers which are going to have the movement. So these are the short bones which are present in our body. Next is going to be a flat bone. So flat bone are the bone whose principal function is either extensively protection or the provision of a broad surface of the muscular attachment. The bone are expanded into broader flat plate as in the cranium, that's mean your skull region, and the pelvic region, then the sternum and the ribs. So the flat bones are in this diagram, the red colored portion are all is going to be a flat bone, made up of flat bone. So what are they? The occipital lobe, the occipital, parietal, frontal, then temporal. So these combinedly called as a skull bone. Okay, the skull going to have frontal, so you can able to see here, it's going to be a parietal, then frontal, occipital, the back side. Okay, already I think you might know the lobes of the brain. So same thing they are pointing out here, the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, the same thing they are pointing there, the position also in the skull region. Then the lacrimal region. Next is going to be your nasal, your nose. It's made up of flat bone. Nasal, lacrimal means near the eye. Okay, then vomer, hip bone, sternum, and the ribs. So all this is going to be a pelvic girdle. Okay, this is going to be a hip bone. We call it as a hip bone. Then sternum. This is going to be a sternum where your ribs going to be get joined from it might emerging from the sternum to the vertebral column, and it get joined to the vertebral column and the sternum. Okay, so this is called sternum. So these bones are made up of flat bones where your muscle is going to be get attached. Okay, so in between the ribs we're going to have intercostal muscle, then the what is this hip bone. Here the hip bone we're going to have the muscles which is present the back bumps, lot of muscles will be present there. Okay, so these bones are into the flat bone, and the skull bone which is going to be formed in the it's also formed by the flat bone. While discussing this flat bone, I want to tell you one information is that everyone will notice that the newborn infant, the head of the newborn infant will be larger than the body size. Everybody might notice that. Even the in the what is that, fetus inside the mother's uterus also going to have the large head size, skull size than the body. Why? Because that through during the time of birth, the fetus has to be passed through the birth canal. It has to come through cervix, vagina, everything else. What happened, as soon as the egg comes out, the whole infant will be coming out as a fully with a forcefully, it comes out easily. So that means that's for that purpose God has been created. Don't think that the skull of the child will be bigger. It's not like that. When we see the structure of the skull, we having lot of crack like structures on the crack like wordings. Sometimes they might say the Brahma's words like that also. Lot of cracks in sense, that is called as sutures. Okay, sutures in sense, if you got any hurt, they will put the suture like that. There are some different, there are some flat bones where in the skull region has been moved apart in the fetus. Okay, the flat, that's mean the parietal, the frontal, occipital flat bones in the fetus, it has been moved apart with some gap. Okay, so because of that, the skull, the head portion of the baby is going to be, seems to be bigger than the body size. So as soon as during the time of birth, the head will be trying hard to come out through the vagina. Yeah, as soon as the head comes out, the full baby will be coming out easily. This is what the reason why the God has been created the larger skull size. After that, what happened in the infant, we the parents, or if your brothers or sisters or your own children, you can able to find the infant, the newborn infant for 3 months. There will be some small hole like there's not some like some hole like region on the top of your head. Okay, mostly all the parents, the doctors also used to advise, don't touch that place. Why? Because the skull has to grow. They will tell the skull has to grow. In sense, the sutures, all the flat bones in the skull has been moved apart. As soon as the baby born, the infant, these sutures will be moving closer, and it tries to close the entire skull region. So it takes 3 months to completely close the skull region. That's what we can able to find a small hollow without bone on the top of the head. But you should not touch it oftenly, because the brain is also getting developed at that time. So the infant doesn't have full developed brain. So these skull flat bones, okay, the parietal, occipital, and the frontal will be moving towards, and it's get joined together. That joint between these two flat bones going to have some sutures like shape, which we called as a suture. So this is the exact reason why the infant or the fetus is going to have the larger head size than the adult. Okay. Next is going to be irregular bone. Irregular bone serves the protection for nervous tissue, affording multiple anchor points for a skeletal muscle attachment, maintaining the pharynx, tracheal support, and the tongue attachment. So mainly irregular bones will be plays a major role in the attachment and that anchoring points. Anchoring point in sense, it going to attach to the muscle, either it going to attach to the tongue, or it going to attach with your trachea or the pharynx, and it going to safeguard it, protection. It going to give them protection to the body. And it consists of a cancellous tissue enclosed within a thin layer of a compact bone. As we see in the cancellous tissue, is going to have a cancellous tissue with going to be going to be covered with or enclosed with your compact or cortical bone. Irregular bones can also be used for joining all parts of the spinal column, vertebral column, the spinal column, or called as a vertebral column together. So these irregular bones will help in joining them. Vertebral column is not a single bone. it's going to have a separate bone, which has been joined by this irregular bone into a single, you can able to see here. So each and every line is going to have a separate bone. These bones has been joined together with the help of this irregular bone, and we're going to have a cartilage in between, or the disc, we will call it as a disc in between the two vertebrae, two vertebral bone. Okay. The spine is placed in the human body where the most irregular bones can be found. Around 33 irregular bones are found in your spinal, your vertebral column. Okay, vertebral column where the spine is going to be placed in the body. So that the irregular bones always plays a major role in the vertebral column. The irregular bones are present mainly in vertebrates, then sacrum, then coccygeal region. Everything comes in your vertebral column. So these three combine together to form a vertebral column. Then temporal, then spinal, ethmoid, then zygomate, maxillum, mandibular, then plantainoid, then hyoid, then inferior nasal cochlea. Okay, so inferior nasal cochlea, in sense they are going to be connected between your nose as well as your ear. Okay, that's called as a inferior nasal cochlea. Okay. Next is going to be a sesamoid bone. Okay, the next thing, the last bone is going to be a sesamoid bone. The bone embedded in a tendon or the muscle. These bones forms a response to strain. The kneecap is the largest sesamoid bone. So the kneecap, this one is going to be your sesamoid bone. The sesamoid acts like a pulley, provides a smooth surface for the tendons to slide over, increase the tendon's ability to transmit the muscular force. So these are the tendons. So as I said, the ligaments or the cartilage, this is going to be cartilage. The white color is going to be a cartilage. Okay, this is going to be your tendons, and this is going to be a muscle. See how your joint has been supported by many cartilage, tendons, ligaments. The tendons also called as the ligaments, and as well as the muscles. These three going to, each and every joint in our body, each and every bone will be supported by these three important material. And if there is any tear in this tendon only, will be cause very difficult for the movement of your leg. Okay, the tendon is to slide over, increasing the tendon's ability to transit the muscular force. Okay, this sesamoid is a small modular bone, most often present in the embedded in the tendons in the region of the thumb. Okay, in the thumb region also. The calcification of sesamoid bone is one of the important features of the pubertal growth spot. Okay, which is earlier in female than the male. Obviously we know that the females will be attains the age or attains the puberty earlier than the male. That's a difference why while getting married, the male age should be more, at least there should be a difference of 3 to 5 years between a male and the female while getting married. Okay, in case if the absence of this sesamoidal bone indicates the delay in reaching the puberty. This is not only a factor of deciding the puberty, even or approximately we can able to find out if there is an absence of sesamoid bone in the body, the person might attain. So there are a lot of things to attain the puberty, a lot of hormonal reactions are there. So even though this sesamoid bone also has some link to the attaining the puberty. So in your knee bone, you can able to find out this sesamoidal bone, as well as in your foot or in your hand, you can find out the small bones which are seen here, sesamoid bones here. Okay, this one and this one is going to be our sesamoid bones, which mainly used in the pulley and providing the smooth surface of the tendons to move or increase in the muscular force activity. Okay, right, this is what the classification of the bone. Next we're going to see the osteogenesis of the bone. The osteogenesis of the bone is also called as ossification of the bone. It is also called as remodeling of the bone. It is also called as formation of the bone in the fetus. Okay, it may be in fetus or in after birth also. If you're going to get any fracture at the time also, this ossification will be taking place. So there are different names for the formation of your bone. We call it as osteogenesis. The process of formation of bone is called as osteogenesis, and the formation of the bone we call it as ossification of the bone and remodeling of the bone. Ossification in bone remodeling is the process of laying down a new bone material by cells called as osteoblasts. I think now you can able to easily understand. You can remember that diagram. Osteoblast, don't confuse with osteoclast. Osteoblast, which is plays a major role in the ossification by laying a new bone material. There are two processes resulting in the formation of normal healthy bone tissue. The first one is going to be intramembranous ossification, and the second one is going to be endochronodal ossification. These are the two major processes which plays a major role in the formation of the bone, either in the fetus or in the fracture case in the adult or in the infant also. So intramembranous ossification is nothing but directly laying down of the bone into the primitive connecting tissues, the mesenchymal cells. So as I said, this mainly involves this intramembranous ossification mainly involves this process takes place only in the fetus insists the formation of your embryo within around third month. I will show the tabular column. During the third month of the fetus formation, the mesenchymal stem cells will be starting developing into the development of the bone formation, which is called as intramembranous ossification. Next is going to endochronodal ossification. This is going to involve the cartilage as the precursor. Okay, so in this ossification, your cartilage is going to be the starting element. In fracture healing, endochronal osteogenesis in the most of the commonly occurring process. Okay. The exact mechanism by which the bone development is triggered remains unclear, but it involves the growth factor and the cytokine in some ways. Okay, right. So this is the osteogenesis of the bone content. So the time period, the third month of the fetal development, ossification in long bone is beginning. Actually, you will. In case you might see with your friends or with your relatives or with your brother, sister, if you got married, you can see with your wife, there will be a third month scanning. Then after that we're going to having a fifth month scanning. So what they will be doing in this scanning process, the third month scanning, exactly based how the development of your organs or development of your bones has been taken place. The main factor for finding out the growth of the baby is the length of the femur. They will be calculating the length of the femur. The third month baby, there is some lot of researches has been made, and they having the reference values. Based upon the value, the length of the femur should be approximately or equal to that particular reference value. If it is as that particular length, so based upon the length size, they will be fixing the age of the fetus. That's very important, because in some cases there may be missing of the menstrual cycle. Due to that, what happened, the woman may get pregnant. So in some cases, the fourth month, fifth, they've been diagnosing only after the fourth month, the fifth month of the pregnancy. So at the time, how the age will be calculated, how the month will be calculated. So based upon the circumference of your skull, then the length of the femur. So the bone plays a major role in that process. Based upon this size and shape only, they having some reference value. They will be correlating with the reference value, and the age of the fetus will be fixed. That's why the third month of the fetal development, ossification in the long bone begins. So if there is a beginning of the femur bone, long bone in sense, the femur, hand, tibia, then radii, these bones, based upon these bones appearance, they will fix that it's a third month baby. In case if it's fifth month, it going to attain some length of the bone, length of the long bone. This long bone length is comparatively, especially they will be taking, even though you can able to take the scan report, and if you read that, they will be putting the size of the femur length. Okay, that's very important, as well as the circumference of your skull region, that's very important. These are the one of the parameters for finding out the age of your fetus. Then the fourth month, most primary ossification center have appeared in the diaphysis of the bone. So there are two things: primary ossification center and secondary ossification center. In the primary ossification center, the diaphysis of the bone is going to be helped in the lengthening of the bone. The secondary ossification center, or the epiphysis, is going to be enlarged. Okay. Next is birth to 5 years. So from the birth till 5 years, secondary ossification center appears in the epiphysis. Okay. The fourth month baby, primary ossification will be ossification centers will be appear, and in the from the birth to the 5th year, the secondary ossification center is going to be appear. Then 5 years to 12 years in females, and 5 years to 14 years in male. So you can able to find a 2 years difference. Okay, the ossification for between the male and the female, the ossification is spreading rapidly from the ossification center, and various bones are becoming ossified. Ossified in sense it's going to complete the process, it's going to end. The bone has been grown completely, that's called as a ossified. Then 17 to 20 years, the bone of upper limb and the scapula becoming completely ossified. The upper limb and scapula in sense is going to be your hand. Okay, well, it's upper, the limb is going to be your hand. Okay, it's becoming completely ossified at the age of your 17 to 20. 18 to 23 years, the bone of your lower limb and the os cocae becomes completely ossified. Your leg is going to be going to get completely ossified between the age of 18 to 23. 23 to 26 years, the bone of the sternum, then clavicle and the vertebrae become completely ossified. So at the age of 26, your sternum, clavicle, then vertebral column becomes completely ossified. By age of 25, nearly all bones are completely ossified. By the age, approximately by the age of 25 for both male and female, all the bones are been completely ossified, in sense it has been reached all the growth. So after that, the person won't be growing. He'll be growing in, the person won't be growing in lengthwise. After the age of 25, he will be growing in breadthwise by eating a lot of foods and consuming a lot of stuffed particles. Okay, with a belly and everything else. That's what we have to keep. We have to always keep our bones stronger by doing exercise and yogas and some gymnastics also. Why? Because while giving some work to your bone, what happened? The layer that new bone formations will be done regularly. Usually if you're going to sit idle also, this formation of this new cells, new bone will be processing by these osteoblast cells and osteoclast cells. But if you're going to do extra work, this will be doing routinely, will be fastening, and you're having a healthy bone. Okay, now we're going to see deeply about the intramembranous ossification. Okay, so intramembranous ossification is one of the two essential processes during the fetal development. That's what I said in the previous while I'm just introducing that point, two types of ossification. It's a fetal development. Intramembranous ossification is also an essential process during the natural healing of bone fracture and the rudimentary formation of the bone of the head. Mesenchyma stem cells within the mesenchyma of the bone fracture initiates the process of intramembranous ossification. Okay, the process of intramembranous ossification starts when a small group of adjacent mesenchyma stem cells begins to replicate and forms a small dense cluster of cells called as nidus. Cells within this nidus develops and displays the macrophagic characteristics of the osteoblast. osteoblast. I will explain this thing with the help of the diagram. The osteoblasts create an extracellular matrix containing type 1 collagen fibrils, which is an osteoid. Some of the osteoblasts become incorporated within the osteoid to become a osteocytes. Okay, right. Now we just see this animated video. Okay, wait, I will come from the beginning. These are going to be osteoblast cells. Okay, these are going to be our the yellowish color is going to be our osteoblast cells. Okay, these cells, how is going to be formed? This is going to be our mesenchyma stem cells. Okay, these mesenchyma stem cells joins together and it's going to multiply. See how it's going to be multiplied. The three mesenchyma now had been multiplied to many. This is going to be osteoblast. Okay, osteoblast cell, and this is also going to be osteoblast, but this osteoblast is going to be get merged or get immersed into that bone, and it going to form a osteocyte cell with a cannula. Okay, now what happened? The calcium and the phosphate minerals will be intake by these osteoblast cells as the minerals. See how it's going to be, and it forms a your osteoblast. Now is going to be converted into osteocyte with the outer layer white layer. See, this is going to be a osteocyte, and the outer layer is going to be a cannula. So this is what just they are telling about the femur bone. If you're going to take the cross section of the femur bone, we can able to find out outer bone, okay, with the inner cancellous bone and with a cannula, lacuna. It's a space. This is going to be this see out this calcium and the phosphate going to deposit it, and it going to lacuna where you can able to find out the bone marrow. Everything else you can find it out. Okay, next is endochronal ossification. Endochronal ossification is one of the two essential processes during the fetal development. The cartilage is present during the endochronal ossification. Cartilage also will be getting started. The endochronal ossification is also an essential process during the rudimentary formation of the long bone, growth of the length of the long bone, and the natural healing of the bone fracture. There are two centers which is present in the endochronal ossification. One is going to be a primary center of ossification, secondary center of ossification. The first site of your ossification occurs in the primary region. In the primary center of ossification, which is in the middle of the diaphysis. So now I think there is no diagram. You can recollect the bone, the femur bone structure. Now you can see. Now you can imagine then where is diaphysis. Okay. So what the first site is the ossification occurs in the primary center of the ossification, which is in the middle of the diaphysis. What happened? This will be helps in the lengthening of the diaphysis. Okay, the primary center for ossification. Secondary center for ossification is the time of birth in the mammals. A secondary ossification center appears each end of the epiphysis of the long bone. The secondary center is going to be morely concentrated on the epiphysis of the long bone. The cartilage between the primary and secondary ossification center is called as the epiphyseal plate or the growth plate. The continues to form new cartilages which is replaced by the bone, a process that results in an increase in the length of the bone. That's very important. These two processes helps in the lengthening of the bone. In the intramembranous ossification, there is a formation of the bone, and in the endochronal ossification there are going to be a lengthening of the bone. The continues to form a new cartilages which is replaced by bone, and a process that results in the increasing the length of the bone. The growth continues until the cartilage in the plate is replaced by the bone. The epiphyseal plate. This epiphyseal plate is completely elongated and it is replaced by the bone. Then the length will and then the growth of the bone in the lengthwise will be stopped, or the growth will be retarded. Okay. The next slide, this is going to be how your bone is going to be along grow in the lengthwise. This is going to be the formation of bone collar around the hyaline cartilage model. Okay, this is going to be a hyaline cartilage, and this is going to be primary ossification center, which is present the diaphysis. Okay, this is going to be a diaphysis, and here is going to have the epiphysis. Okay, this is going to be bone collar. Okay, what happened? Deterioration of the cartilage matrix. Then what happened? This deterioration will be elongate, and the blood vascularization is blood vessels will be entering into that spongy bone formation, which is we call it as a cancellous bone. Then the medullary cavity. Now the cavity has been formed. Medullary canal will be formed where your bone matrix is going to be present, and here the epiphyseal blood vessels, epiphyseal region, blood vessel, the secondary ossification center has been formed here and here. So these two end, we're going to have a secondary ossification center. Then what happened? These secondary ossification centers also have the spongy bone at both the ends, and epiphyseal plate. This is going to be a epiphyseal plate. Both the ends we're going to have a epiphyseal plate, which helps in the elongation of your bone in the lengthwise. Okay, right. Next we're going to see about the cartilage. Cartilage is a smooth elastic tissue, a rubber-like padding that covers and protects the ends of the long bone at the joints and the nerves. Okay, so cartilage, you can able to see in the diagram, there is a white color which is called as a cartilage. This is going to be tendons. Okay, the cartilage always will be with the help of the tendons, and this cartilage is called as a hyaline articular cartilage, which reduce the friction. The main purpose of the cartilage is used to reduce the friction and helps in the movement, fast movement of your while walking, while running, everything else. Okay, then the cartilage is a structural component of the rib cage, the ear, the nose, and the bronchial tube, the intravertebral disc, and many other body components. Obvious, we can see that you can touch your nose, you can touch your ear, everything is flexible. Okay, even the bronchial tube, trachea is also a cartilage bone. That's what while hanging immediately get collapsed. Okay, it's a flexible, made up of cartilage. Then your bronchioles also made up of cartilage. Then invertebral disc, it's a disc which is present in between the two vertebrates. Okay, disc and other body components, lot of components made up of this cartilage. The cartilage is not a hard and rigid as bone. That's why I said the best cartilage you can able to see is a ear as well as your nose. When you're going to compare to your ear, ear is that much flexible than nose. You can turn in the school days, our teachers used to tirify our ears. Okay, for giving punishment and all, they used to turn your ears and they will scold us. Okay, that's also going to be a stimulus to the brain. That's a different category. Okay, right. The cartilage is not as hard and rigid as bones, and it is so much stiffer and much less flexible than the muscle. It's not much more flexible than muscle, but it's stiffer than the bone. The cartilage does not contain blood vessel and no nerves. This is very, very, very important thing. In the previous, I told that I will let you know in the later slides. Okay, why? Because during the time of fracture, your bone has been supplied by the blood vessels. So if there is a blood vessel, there is enormous amount of oxygen supply, nutrient supply, everything is there in the bone, and there is a process of regrowth of the bone is there. Regrowth of the bone can be appear, whereas in the cartilage it is not supplied by the blood vessels, or it is not supplied by your nerves. So due to that, if there is any tear in the cartilage, it's very difficult. Sometimes it may be leads to lifelong problem also. So we should be very careful while having any especially the cartilage which is present in the joints, in the joints, especially the knee joint, elbow joint, and ankle joint. So there are where especially the ankle joint is more prone to this ligament tear. Why? Because is the place where the whole body weight is going to be bad, and the locomotion is going to be also takes place. And if there is any mismatching while keeping your foot, it will twist, and it will result in the tear of cartilage also. There are different types of cartilages. Okay, there are three types of main types of cartilages. One is going to be elastic cartilage, and other one is going to be a hyaline cartilage, and other one is going to be a fibrous cartilage. So elastic cartilage is nothing but the cells are closer together, creating less intracellular space. And the elastic cartilage is found in the internal ear flaps and inner parts of your larynx. So you can see the diagram. This is one is going to be a elastic cartilage, where the cells are present very closer to each other. Whereas hyaline cartilage has a fewer cells than the elastic cartilage, and there is more intracellular space. The hyaline cartilage is found in the nose, ear, trachea, and parts of your larynx and smaller respiratory tract. That's important. Okay, so here we can able to find out the hyaline cartilages. Okay, then you can see the diagram. The hyaline cartilages, see here the cells has been distributed, and when compared to elastic cartilages, the cells are very less, and you can have the clear looking of the ground substances also. Then the fibrous cartilage has a fewest cell, so it has the most intracellular space. Fibrous cartilages is found in the spine. Okay, so in the spine, the vertebral column, you can able to find out this type of cartilages, fibrous cartilages in the spine region. Okay, next, the function of the cartilage. What is the main function of a cartilage? Mechanical property, frictional property, and repair. Mechanical property. The mechanical property of articular cartilage is load-bearing joints such as knee and hip. So in the mechanical, knee and hip is going to be our mechanical process, where your knee, as I said, the elbow joints, knee joint, ankle joint, everything is mostly concentrated in the mechanical work. Then frictional property. The lubricin, a glycoprotein abundant in the cartilage and the synovial fluid, plays a major role in biolubrication and we are the protection of the cartilage. What is that? Usually I used to compare these joints with door's keel. Okay, why? In case if there is no, we can't able to close the door properly, what will we do? Or if you have some noise in the door, what happened? What will we do? Immediately we're going to have 2 drops of oil, where your door can be moved easily without any noise, any friction. That oil is called as a lubrication. Like that, there is a glycoprotein which is present in the cartilage, in the joints, which helps in the lubricants. That's a friction property. This cartilage will reduces the friction property, as I shown in that female bone, a whitish color cartilage, hyaline cartilage, which helps in the movement of your without any friction. Repair. Cartilage has limited repair capability. That's what I said. Cartilage, because it is not supplied by the blood or the nerve, so it has a limited repair capability as it got any damage in the cartilage. Right, next we're going to have a skeletal joints. Okay, so joints is the connection made between the bone in the body, which links the skeletal system into a functional as a whole. Okay, the constructed to allow for a different degree and types of movements. So the joint which going to makes you to move, rotate your hand, to move your leg, it allows in different degrees of rotation of the movement. Some joints such as knee, elbow, shoulder are self-lubricating, almost frictionless, and are able to withstand the compression and maintain a heavy load while still executing smooth and precise movement. So here the joints where it has been self-lubricated by the hyaline cartilage, as I said, which helps. Why? Because here these are the places where the shoulders, your elbows, your knees, and your angle. So here where the maximum compression will be maintained with the heavy loads. The other joints such as sutures between the bones of the skull. Actually, this is the thing which I am pointing out earlier. Okay, this is called as the sutures. Okay, these sutures will be moving out. These sutures will be moving out. These sutures will be moving apart in the fetus. Okay, and this will be get closer as soon as it joins together. Okay, the other joints such as sutures between the bones of the skull permit very little movement during the birth in order to protect the brain and the sense organ. So it's that's what I'm telling you. In the time of birth, it will be protected in the moving of the skull. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, so the switches which is present in the skull region, which helps in the protection of the brain and the sense organ. Okay, right.
Right?
Yes, sir. Right. Next, the classification of joints. There are four structural classification of joints. One is going to be a fibrous joint. Next is going to be a cartilaginous joint, and next is going to be a sinusoidal joint, and next is a facet joints. So these are the four structural classification of the joints. Where the fibrous joints, joined by dense regular connective tissues that is rich in collagen fiber in the skull, and the joint between the bones are called as the sutures. Okay. Next is cartilage joints. These cartilage joints joined by the cartilages. So here we can able to see the fibrous joints are nothing but the sutures which is present in the skull. Okay, these are the sutures. This is what I'm trying to tell you in that in the fetus. These sutures will be moved apart and the head looking somewhat broader. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say during the time of that case. And this is the teeth. This is also going to be your fibrous joint. So it will be easy. It will be movable. Okay, the teeth is also a bone which is where it has been attached is also going to be a fibrous joint. Then cartilage joint joined by the cartilages. The primary cartilages joint composed of a hyaline cartilages. The secondary cartilages joint composed of a hyaline cartilages covering the articular surface of the involved bone with the fibrocartilage connection between them. Excuse me. So here the secondary cartilage joints we can able to see. As I said in the femur, right, the white color hyaline cartilages, right? This is what I try to say. And you can able to see here also in the femur in between these two pelvic girdle also you're going to have a hyaline cartilage, secondary cartilages joint also. The next one is sinusoidal joint. The bone have a sinusoidal cavity and are united by a dense irregular connective tissue that forms the articular capsule that is normally associated with the accessory ligaments. And it has been classified into 6 groups. Which one? The synovial joint is going to classify it into 6 groups. One is going to be plain joint, ball and socket joint, hinge joint, then pivot joint, then colinoidal joint and saddle joint. Colinoidal joint and the saddle joint. So you can able to see, you can able to find out the 6 joints which is present in our body. Okay, so the plain joint where your joint, some region going to have the plain joints. Okay, this is going to be a plain joint where you are in the foot, we're going to have a plain joint. And next is going to be a ball socket. Usually your hip and your shoulder going to have the ball socket joint. Okay, then hinge joint, where your hinge joint is going to be, this is going to be your hinge joint, where your ankle elbow joint we call it as the hinge joint. Then pivot joint, this is going to be your pivot in the neck region, you're going to have a pivot joint. Then condyloid joint will be present in this is going to be a saddle joint. The fingers we're going to have a saddle joint, and the wrist region we're going to have a what is that? Condyloid joint, where your cartilage will be covering over that joint. Next is going to be facet joint. This is a joint between the two articular process between the two vertebrates. So this is the joint between the two vertebrae, not here. This is going to be a disc. Okay, this is going to be a vertebrate disc here. Here, this is going to be a joint where your irregular bones has been made up of your vertebral column here. This is going to be a joint which we call as the facet joint. See how this joint is going to move. during with the bending position of the bending forward and bending backward of your vertebral column, these joints will be moving upward and downward. Okay, right. So these are the different classification of the joints. Right. Athena sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Can you able to hear me?
Yeah, sir. I can hear. You can hear me, right? I think.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I think today I finished this topic. I think I haven't consumed a lot of time. I think so. There is any other
No,
classes
sir.
after this?
No, sir. No, sir. Actually, 9 o'clock only we have another class.
Okay,
If you
for God's sake,
you can proceed. All else we can able to.
That's all. That's all. I
continue
have
tomorrow.
completed. I have completed. The human skeletal system has been over today.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Then we will meet tomorrow.
Okay, sir. We will meet tomorrow.
Okay, sir. To participants, today's class will be continued by tomorrow exactly by 4 o'clock. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Topic has been over. Tomorrow we are going to
Yeah,
have
today's topic is over. I'm telling about the human anatomy and physiology course.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.